Trust your instincts. They might just save your life. Never dismiss that uneasy feeling as paranoia, even in the safety of your own home. Here's why. One autumn evening, as daylight faded and seasonal melancholy settled in, I was alone in the house I shared with my roommate. Curled up on the couch, flipping through streaming options, I suddenly felt something was off. It wasn't guilt over laziness. It was deeper. Like the world itself had tilted slightly, the sensation was similar to driving with a slow tire leak, subtle but undeniable. Unable to shake it, I turned off the TV and headed upstairs, leaving the downstairs lights on. In the bathroom, I turned on music, hoping to distract myself. No pets were around to confirm my unease, so I relied on my own intuition and ignored it. Just as I undressed for a shower, I heard movement downstairs. I muted my phone, but the noise didn't repeat. Maybe it was my imagination or my roommate returning early. Surely no stranger could have entered. My doors were locked, my neighborhood safe. The shower eased my nerves. But the moment I turned off the water, the dread returned. I stepped out quietly, shutting off my phone, then froze. A shadow stretched under the door. No one I knew would stand so still. No knock, no voice, just silence. My mind raced. If I flung the door open, would a masked figure lunge at me? I dressed slowly, eyes locked on the shadow. Then I made my move. I cracked open the bathroom window, flushed the toilet to mask the noise, and climbed out. As I slid onto the roof, the blinds rattled. Instantly, the bathroom door crashed open behind me. I dropped to the ground and sprinted to a neighbor's house, where I called the police. Officers found no one inside, but evidence was everywhere. Footprints, disturbed belongings. The intruder had been watching me from outside the living room window, waiting for me to leave before slipping in through the back door. He could have taken me at any moment. 1,000 things could have gone wrong. But I listened to my gut just in time. Years earlier, as a child shuttling between my divorced parents' homes, I preferred my dad's quiet cul-de-sac to the city. One summer evening, I was alone browsing the early internet when hunger struck. Dusk had fallen, but I didn't bother turning on lights as I walked to the kitchen. Then I heard it, the faint chime of chimes on my nightstand lamp, a sound I only knew from adjusting my window. My body locked up. Footsteps, muffled voices. My bedroom door creaked open. I lunged for the back door but stopped. The screened porch would trap me. Running toward the front meant passing the intruders. So I hid in a closet. Gripping the knob, 2 voices argued in the kitchen. One rummaged through the fridge. "Get out of there," the other snapped. Then, a tug on my hiding place. "This one's locked." I braced for the worst, but then, "Did you open this?" The intruders bolted outside. Moments later, sirens wailed. A neighbor had spotted them breaking in. They were just teenagers, unarmed, but the terror stayed with me for years. On a hike with friends in Northern Ireland, we stumbled upon a hidden stone house deep in the woods. Security cameras lined the exterior, yet the gate and front door hung open. Inside, we found oddities, metal detecting wands, generators, and an upstairs room with a cot and surveillance setup. As my friends explored, I lingered by the stairs, then noticed black ash stains halfway up. The smell of burning fabric hit me. We fled, hearing an enraged roar behind us. Later, friends returned and dug up a Ouija board buried outside. Rumors swirled of violent occultists in those woods. We'd been lucky to escape unseen. Working at a haunted attraction, I once encountered a trespasser in the maze. Hours later, an actor warned me the same man was lurking in the back corridors. I searched but found nothing. Until, in the dark, I heard footsteps charging toward me. I flashed my light just in time. The intruder was sprinting at me with a prop mallet. I outran him, and police later explained it was a gang initiation. Recruits had to film themselves attacking someone in the park. That wooden mallet could have knocked me unconscious. The lesson? Always trust your instincts, whether it's a shadow under the door, an unexpected noise, or an off-limits house. That feels wrong. Your gut knows. Ignoring it could cost you everything. Here's the continuation. Years ago, I worked security at a large amusement park during their Halloween event. One of my duties was patrolling the haunted maze after closing to ensure no guests were left inside. Most nights were uneventful, just resetting props and checking for lost items. But one evening, long after the last visitors had left, I heard something that made my blood run cold. As I walked through the darkened maze, flashlight in hand, I caught the faint sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was just the wind or maybe a malfunctioning audio effect. But then I heard it again, clearer this time. A low, rhythmic muttering, like someone reciting something under their breath. I followed the sound to one of the maze's hidden alcoves, where a scare actor in a tattered costume usually lurked, but the event was over. All actors had clocked out, yet there, crouched in the shadows, was a figure, not one of ours. The person, if it was a person, was dressed in what looked like old stained hospital scrubs. Their head was bowed, and their hands moved in slow, deliberate gestures, as if tracing symbols in the air. The whispering grew louder, though I still couldn't make out the words. I called out, "Hey! The park's closed! You can't be in here." The figure went still. Then, slowly, it raised its head. No mask, no makeup. Just a face so gaunt and hollow-eyed that, for a second, I wasn't sure if it was real. I backed away, radioing for backup. By the time security arrived, the figure was gone. We searched the entire maze, but there was no trace, no open gates, no broken locks. Just a lingering smell of antiseptic and something faintly metallic. Later, one of the veteran employees pulled me aside. "You saw the surgeon, didn't you?" Turns out, for years, there'd been rumors of a ghostly figure, a former doctor, some said, who wandered the park at night, always near the medical-themed haunted house. No one knew if it was a prankster, a squatter, or something else. But after that night, I made sure never to patrol alone again. The world is full of unexplained things, moments where logic fails and instinct screams. Maybe it's a stranger standing too still outside your door. Maybe it's a house in the woods that shouldn't exist. Or maybe it's just a whisper in the dark where no one should be. The point is this: listen to that feeling. It's not paranoia, it's survival. And more often than not, it's the only warning you'll get. Here's the final segment, maintaining the eerie tone while reinforcing the core message about trusting instincts. Years later, I found myself working night security at an old university library. The building dated back to the 1920s, all marble floors and oak shelves that creaked like old bones. Most nights were quiet, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional scurrying of mice in the archives. One winter evening, as I made my 2 a.m. rounds, I noticed something odd on the 3rd floor. The motion-activated lights weren't turning on. My flashlight revealed why. Every bulb in the aisle had been carefully unscrewed, just enough to break contact. As I reached up to fix one, I heard it 3 distinct knocks from the study carrel at the end of the dark row. "Library's closed," I called out, gripping my radio. No response. When I approached, I found the carrel empty, except for an open book lying face down on the desk. The pages were blank. Not just unmarked, completely blank, like they'd never been printed on. As I flipped through it, the temperature dropped sharply. My breath came out in visible puffs, despite the building's heating system. Then the whispers started, not from any direction, but everywhere at once. A chorus of hushed voices speaking in languages I didn't recognize. The sounds seemed to come from between the bookshelves themselves. I ran. Didn't radio it in, didn't log it, just got out and sat in my car until sunrise. When I returned with my supervisor, the book was gone. Maintenance claimed the heating had malfunctioned that night, causing auditory hallucinations from pipe resonance. I quit the next week. Because here's what they didn't know when I grabbed that blank book. Just for a second, the whispers had coalesced into one clear sentence in English. You weren't supposed to see this. The pattern holds true every time. That prickle on your neck when you walk past an empty room that suddenly feels occupied. The way animals freeze before danger becomes visible. The inexplicable certainty that you should turn around right now. These aren't glitches in reality, they are features. Warning systems honed over millennia. The world is stranger than we pretend, and far more dangerous than we admit. But we all have this gift, this internal alarm that sounds before the threat materializes. The choice is always yours. Dismiss it as imagination, or heed it as the lifeline it is. After everything I've seen, I know which option keeps people alive. So when that voice in your head says run, don't question it. Don't rationalize. Here's the continuation. Maintaining the chilling atmosphere while reinforcing the theme of instinctual awareness. The most unsettling encounters often happen in broad daylight. Last spring, I was hiking a popular trail near my home, the kind where you're never more than 20 minutes from another group of hikers. It was a perfect Saturday morning, sunlight filtering through new leaves, when I rounded a bend and saw her. A woman in a yellow sundress stood motionless in the middle of the path, barefoot despite the chilly spring mud. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like a doll whose neck joint had loosened. As I approached, she didn't turn toward my footsteps, just kept staring at something in the trees. "Everything okay?" I called from 10 feet away. Slowly, mechanically, her head rotated toward me, her lips stretched into a smile too wide for her face. "They're singing," she whispered. "Can't you hear them singing?" The forest was silent. No birds, no wind, just the distant murmur of a stream. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step in the dark. Every instinct screamed to back away, slowly. When I blinked, she was gone. Not running, not walking, simply absent, as if she'd never been there. The only proof was the wet footprints leading off the trail, and the faint off-key humming that seemed to follow me all the way back to the parking lot. A friend who works in emergency dispatch once told me about calls that still haunt her. The ones where the caller insists something's in their house, but officers find nothing, where people swear they're being followed by cars with no plates or drivers. The calls that end with, "Oh God, it's inside," before going silent. We dismiss these as pranks or mental illness, but the terrifying truth? The operators can often hear the background noises the callers describe. The scratching, the breathing, the wet dragging sounds. And sometimes, when police arrive, they find the homes empty. But with all the doors locked from the inside, your instincts aren't just reacting to what you can see or hear. They're picking up on the subtle things, the way birds suddenly stop chirping, how shadows don't quite match the light source, that metallic taste in your mouth when something's very wrong. These are your body's way of saying, the rules have changed. The world has dark corners that don't follow the laws we know, places where things watch from the periphery, moments when reality stutters. And in those moments you have one advantage, that primal voice in your head that knows, beyond logic, when to freeze, when to fight, and when to run like hell. Listen to it. Even if you're wrong, you lose nothing. But if you're right, and you will be, more often than you'd think, it might be the only thing that keeps you from becoming another unexplained story, another missing person, another voice whispering warnings no one heeded. Here's the final continuation, bring our collection of unsettling encounters to a close while driving home the core message. 3 months ago, I stayed at a roadside motel during a cross-country move, the kind of place where the neon vacancy sign buzzes all night and the ice machine hasn't worked in a decade. Room 114 smelled like cigarettes and ammonia, but it was cheap and I was exhausted. At 3:17 a.m., the knocking started. Not on my door, on the wall behind the headboard. 3 slow raps, then silence, then 3 more. I lay perfectly still, remembering an old traveler's superstition. Never answer unexpected knocks in the night, especially not the 3rd set. The pattern repeated twice before stopping abruptly. But said, "Oh." The silence that followed was worse, thick and heavy, like the air before a lightning strike. That's when I noticed my breath wasn't fogging in the suddenly frigid room. The digital clock blinked erratically between 3:17 and 00:00. I left everything, luggage, shoes, even my phone charging by the bed, and walked barefoot to the front office. The night clerk took one look at my face and handed me a key to a different room without asking questions. When I collected my things the next morning, the original room's door stood open, the bed stripped. A maintenance worker was replacing the smoke detector. "Had some electrical issues last night?" I asked casually. He didn't look up from his work. "No, sir, just standard maintenance." But I saw how his hand shook as he screwed in the new unit. These stories all share the same lesson. The moment you feel that primal chill down your spine, that animal certainty that something is wrong, act. Don't rationalize. Don't hesitate. Your subconscious notices what your conscious mind dismisses. The way shadows move a second after you do. The silence where there should be sound. The wrongness of a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The door that's slightly more open than you left it. The word LD is both stranger and more dangerous than we admit. But we still have this ancient gift. That internal alarm that sounds before we consciously perceive the threat. In that critical moment between normalcy and nightmare, you get one warning, one chance. So when your skin crawls for no reason, leave. When the hair stands up on your neck, run. When something tells you this isn't right, believe it. Because in the end, the only stories like these that truly terrify me, the ones we never hear, the times when someone didn't listen to that warning voice and lived just long enough to regret it. Here's the final continuation, bringing our unsettling collection full circle while reinforcing the vital importance of instinct. Last winter, I visited my grandmother in her centuries-old farmhouse. She'd always been superstitious, hanging horseshoes upside down to keep the luck from running out, leaving salt on the windowsills. That night, as wind howled through the eaves, she told me something I'll never forget. "When I was a girl," she said, knitting needles clicking like insect legs, "we had a neighbor who swore his barn was haunted. Tools would move overnight. Animals refused to enter. Then one evening he went to investigate a noise and came back different." She leaned forward, her cataract-clouded eyes suddenly sharp. His wife knew immediately. The way he held his fork wrong, how he'd forgotten their baby's name. She locked herself in the root cellar that very night. By morning he was gone, just a pile of wet leaves where he'd slept. I laughed nervously. "You're saying something took him?" Her needle stopped. "I'm saying his wife lived because she listened. Just like I'm telling you now. When the hairs on your neck stand up, that's not fear, that's knowledge. Your body remembers what your mind's forgotten." Last week, I was first on scene at a car accident. The vehicle had veered off an empty straightaway into an oak tree. No skid marks, no alcohol. Just a terrified woman repeating one phrase through broken teeth. The back seat was empty. The back seat was empty when I looked. The paramedics assumed shock, but I saw the child-sized handprints pressed into the frost inside the rear windows, facing inward. These stories aren't about ghosts or monsters. They're about the razor-thin line between the world we understand and whatever lies beyond it. about the moments when reality peels back just enough to show us the teeth beneath. Your instincts are the only flashlight in that darkness. They speak in chills and goosebumps for a reason. These are the oldest languages, the ones we knew before words. When they shout, it's not just for your attention, it's for your survival. So the next time you feel that inexplicable dread, don't dismiss it. Don't laugh it off. Run, fight, hide, whatever that voice commands, obey without hesitation, because in the end, every survivor's story has the same moral. The only wrong choice is ignoring the warning. There's the chilling conclusion to our collection of unsettling encounters, tying together the thread of instinctual survival that runs through them all. The most terrifying truth I've learned is this: the world keeps exact records. Every ignored warning, every dismissed gut feeling, every time someone said, "It's probably nothing," against their better judgment. These aren't just near misses. They're entries in a ledger we don't get to see. A paramedic friend once described finding a suicide note that simply read, "I should have left when the dog wouldn't stop barking at the closet." A security guard told me about footage from a store robbery where the cashier hesitated just before pressing the silent alarm, the exact moment the would-be robber's eyes flickered black in the camera feed. A park ranger shared records of 911 calls where hikers reported something wrong with the trees, minutes before vanishing in broad daylight. These aren't coincidences. They're receipts. Last month, I stayed in a lakeside cabin. On the second night, I woke to the sound of something heavy being dragged across the dock outside. Through the window, I saw perfect moonlight reflecting on undisturbed water. The dragging sound continued for exactly 17 minutes. I counted before stopping abruptly. The next morning, the elderly caretaker found me examining the dock. "Heard it last night. Jeet, did you?" she asked, not looking up from her gardening. When I nodded, she sighed. "Most don't. Most sleep right through it." She patted my arm with soil-caked fingers. "You'll live longer that way." As I packed my car, I noticed the cabin's guest book. Flipping through, I found the same phrase scribbled in different hands across decades. "We left early. Didn't like the nights." Every entry dated between October and April. This is the final lesson. The world whispers before it screams. That prickle of unease walking past a certain grave. The way your reflection sometimes blinks a second late. The phone call from your own number, where all you hear is breathing. These aren't malfunctions of reality. They're its operating system revealing itself. Your body has evolved over millennia to recognize these cracks in the ordinary. That sinking feeling isn't fear, it's recognition. Like a sailor sensing the shift in wind before the storm hits, or a prey animal freezing at a scent it can't identify but knows means death. So, when the streetlights begin flickering as you walk beneath them, change your route. When the radio static resolves into whispers only when you're alone, smash it. When you wake at 3 a.m. to the sensation of something sitting on the edge of your bed, don't open your eyes. Pretend to sleep until sunrise, then move and never look back. Because, in the end, the only difference between those who survive the unseen and those who don't comes down to one simple choice. The moment your primal beat. Rain shouts, "Danger, do you argue or obey?" The ledger is waiting. Make your mark wisely. Here's the final chilling thought to leave you with. Somewhere right now, someone is ignoring that whisper of warning. Pushing aside the unease, laughing off the too long stare from a stranger, telling themselves the muffled footsteps in an empty house are just the pipes. And somewhere, the ledger is opening a new page. Sleep well, but leave the light on.